Hello, everyone. We're excited to have you here with us today as we chat about Cayosoft's automated user provisioning and deprovisioning solutions. I'm Justin. I work alongside the Microsoft experts here at Cayosoft, and I just need to quickly run us through some housekeeping items before we jump in to today's demonstration. So first off, your microphones are muted, but please don't let that stop you from asking questions. Now, depending on how you joined, whether in browser or through an app, you're going to see a question or a chat section on your screen. Drop your questions in there and we'll keep an eye on that for you. If we happen to not cover your question, we will personally follow up with you after the event. I'd also like to point out that we do have a few data sheets and other supporting assets in the handout section for this event. So feel free to check those out, download and share those with your team. Now we have with us today Chad Nichols, who is one of our great systems engineers. But before we get started, we'll head over to the next slide. And if everyone could take a quick moment to follow us on social media, that would be awesome. You'll see here we've provided some QR codes for all of your favorite social channels. So instead of trying to search for us, you can conveniently scan these codes with your phone camera, and they'll take you directly to our pages. And there you can follow and stay connected with us and keep up to date on the latest and greatest information and events, just like this one. So that takes care of that. And now I will pass it over to Chad. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you very much, Justin. Happy to be here today. This is probably going to be a pretty quick and straightforward demonstration. We're super focused on a certain topic today, so I will try to keep it nice and short and sweet. And hopefully give you guys and gals a good indication of how we can help with your IAM process. So we're going to first I'll kind of cover how people do this today, using native tools, so Active Directory user computers, fully manual, how we can help with that using our web interface, which is manual and not manual at the same time. And you'll see exactly what I mean by that here in a moment. And then how we can also fully automate the entire lifecycle for a user, all with automation and rules and runbooks. So with that being said, let me get over to my environment. So I have set up here in my environment a domain that I use for demo purposes. Nothing extravagant, users, computers, groups, the standard thing that most organizations will have. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of go through something that everybody here has probably done before, and it's the normal process that you would do to create a new user the old-fashioned way. So going through Active Directory uses computers, and we'll just do a first name and last name. Now notice here that the only thing that's been generated for me is the full name. All the other information is still kind of blank. So I have to figure out, okay, what am I going to have? The SAM account name, the UPN, which of course is easy to do. You can type that in yourself, but also, have to select what my UPN suffix is going to be here as well. So nothing's really predefined for me, and it's all, manual. I can specify the default password here. I'll pick something that I hope my complexity rules will be okay with. We'll just leave it at user goes next login. So that's it, right? So that just created my user. However, it didn't do anything else. There were manual steps involved. I had to pick things on my own. I had to define my own naming convention in there. And that's really all that was set up for this user. The user still does not have any manager information, no department information, no address, none of the other things that'll be done. And also, this user does not exist in the cloud yet because I only created them in AD. So until my Active Directory Connect server does its replication, the user's not going to exist in the cloud. So the whole point here is it's a bunch of manual steps. If you're going to do this, and I hope nobody that's listening today still provisions accounts in this manner, that you have some kind of thing in place, but it's a lot of manual work. It takes a lot of time to perform this stuff, and you also have to rate for replication to get the cloud side up and running. So the next thing we'll show is how you can do this through delegation with Cayosoft Administrator's web interface. So with the product, you can do at least privilege delegation. You give folks access to only what you want them to see, what you want them to do based on their roles. And you can also set up other rules around how they interact with the web forms. And that really helps kind of complete the story if you're going to provision users with the web interface. And the reason I kind of went through showing you the old way of doing it, because you probably know already, but it gives you a really good example of kind of the difference there. So first, I'm going to go ahead and specify the user account. One thing to note too, this is already going to be created in the correct OU for me, so that's set up by default, so I don't have to pick what OU that I am going to create the user in. With ADUC, of course, you have to go to that correct OU and then start the process from there. But here, all that's predefined. So I'm going to go ahead and start this process. One of the things that we can really do and help drive consistency, compliance, spelling, all the things that kind of really help with data integrity is with the web forms, we can wrap a lot of policies around each of the attributes that are available. You can leave them read writes, you can set them to read only, make them required. We can do drop-down lists. You can hide things. And what you see right now is an example of where I put a regex mask behind a field. So I'm very OCD about my naming conventions, and I want to make sure that everything's the same. So I've set up a quick example here that, last name, the first letter has to be capitals or first and third. Until I actually fix that, I cannot proceed. Now that I have, I can. The rest of this has been completely filled in for me based on naming rules that we have available within the product. So I did not have to go in and type the username or the same account name manually. And that way, everything, again, is very consistent. It's based on your naming standards. If I'm an end user, whether that's an HR person, a help desk person, whoever that is, making this as streamlined, efficient, and easy is really the point. We also can do full end-to-end user provisioning as part of the process. What that means is now we've added some extra things that you can set up within this wizard that you can't do with users or computers. So one of the first thing you see here is, hey, do we want to provision a mailbox as part of the process? I do not want on-prem mailboxes created anymore, and normally there'd be 3 choices here, and I've removed the option to be able to create that on-prem. So that's an example of really cleaning up the interface, hiding something I don't want somebody to see, and now I can choose Exchange Remote. When I do that, that also gives me the ability to assign licenses during this process. If you use group-based licensing, that's no problem. We also support that as well. But if you're using user-based licenses, this is really easy. And there's a couple ways you can do this. This is kind of the legacy way. So, hey, here are the licenses that are available in my tenant, except for a couple that I've hidden from view, my E3 and E5. And I've predefined some choices here, made this one read only, because, hey, if I'm going to have an Exchange mailbox, I have to have an Exchange license, so I can't take that away. And the other ones I've left open for, to be changed. Another way to do that is what we call license profiles. And you have the ability to set up this profile within the automation and configuration console, which you'll see here in a moment. And you predefine all of the licenses that a particular, quote, type of user is going to get. Where that is defined is totally up to the organization. It could be, associate versus executive here, like I have, or maybe it's a region, right? Everybody in Americas gets this, everybody in EMEA gets something else. It's totally customer driven. But now that I've done all of that set up in the console that drives this process, everything's chosen for me. I don't have to guess at what licenses should or should not be applied. I just pick the type of individual that's going to get this license, and everything else is complete. We do support generating content automatically within the product, and this is one where I just added the time, date, and the user that's creating the individual. I do not have to type a password in. I can have that set up to auto-generate for me, and you can set up the password rules that do any of the automatic password generation to meet corporate standards. Make that whatever you have as a corporation, and we can match that. The rest of these, of course, are pretty straightforward, but I have prevented this person from being able to check these two boxes because I do not want this to be done for a normal user account. We also can help with populating some of the extra data that you don't get to do as part of the Active Directory users computers process when you create a new user. So in this particular page, this top half is pretty much fixed. So job title, department, country, office, company, manager. I have created a list that I can then populate for department. And again, this is really around preventing spelling errors, trying to help make it easy for the end user. The bottom half here, we can add up to 20 different Active Directory attributes to this screen. You can map those to any attributes in Active Directory and then change the label that's shown to the individual to where it says anything you want. So if this employee number field is actually mapped to, let's say, for example, extension attribute 10, an HR individual that's not familiar with Active Directory probably doesn't even know what that means. So it would not make sense for that person to see that as a value here. But they know what employee number is. They know what that's supposed to be. So that's very easy. And I've also pre-filled the address information based on location. So again, data consistency, compliance, driving that, and also making it very easy. If I try to click next, here's an example of required fields. So this is something I have to fill out in order to proceed. So until I do this, I cannot go any further. And employee number actually is another one that might be a good use case for a regex mask or something like that, right? Because there's probably a predefined value or type of value that goes in here. But again, you can add up to 20 different attributes here and really customize this and make it your own. Final screen here, we also have the ability to add custom attributes. These are called virtual attributes, and they only exist within our software. So when we do the software install in your environment, we do not do anything to the schema in AD. We can access the attributes that are there today, but we're not going to mess with AD at all. And then if you need to add extra data into the product, maybe you've run out of extension attributes, maybe there's some sensitive data you don't want to have in Active Directory because if somebody has access to ADUC, they could potentially see that data. It just gives you some options, and these are all user defined, and they can really be anything you want: drop down lists, freeform text, check boxes, all the standard type of web form entries. And you can do up to 20 of these here as well. The reason in the previous slide deck you saw this is kind of an automated manual process is because even though I am going through a wizard and manually inputting certain fields, as you've seen so far, we're also pre-filling things in, providing context around, department, location, whatever you need. But then also our provisioning process, whether you do it through the web or through automation rules, is a full end-to-end provisioning process. So not only are we creating the Active Directory user account, which is this first step, but this also kicks off a multitude of other rules that run in order to finish the provisioning process completely. So here's my Active Directory user account that got created, the password that was generated for me. We also will set the attributes for Exchange Remote Mail that need to be set on the AD user, so that's done by a different rule. We pre-create the Office 365 account and do that in a way that when Active Directory Connect does its replication, it will map this user to this user, so you do not have a chance of getting duplicates in the cloud. And that then allows us to do that license assignment as part of this process. So again, we don't have to wait for Active Directory replication to complete. We don't have to wait for AD Connect replication to complete. And this user is completely created from the start, and we have the licenses assigned. So that's that much quicker that the user account can be active and ready for email, for Teams, and all those services that Microsoft provide. So again, full end-to-end provisioning. Through the web, you can also do deprovisioning of an account. This is also a complete deprovision process. For this process, I always pick on Clark here. And if we take a look at his account and his account properties, he's a typical user, normal account information. He is reports to me, and he's a member of some groups, both on-prem and in the cloud. So let's say that he has decided that he wants to retire, or maybe he's going on extended leave, or maybe he's, being let go. Whatever the circumstance, you want to make sure that when this processes occur, that it's a complete, full end-to-end deprovisioning process. And what I mean by that, and one thing before I show you this, you can actually do this right away from the web, and you can also set a schedule. So, if this is somebody that's retiring, Friday at 5 o'clock, you set up the time, the date, and then it will just automatically occur at that time. If it's something that needs to happen, like I'm going to do right now, just right away, as soon as I click the suspend button here, it's going to start processing the changes. In ADUC, if you were to do this, it would be going to the user account, right-click, disable. And from native tools, without any scripting or anything, that's really what you have. What we do is take that the next step forward for both Active Directory and also Azure Active Directory. So my rules have this removing all of the attribute information, the manager information, taking them out of their groups, disabling the account, moving it to my suspended users OU, or I keep users for 90 days before I will fully delete them. All of the things that you would do for AD. But it also then takes it to the next level and does the Office 365 things too. Signs them out of their sessions, converts the mailbox to a shared mailbox, hide it from the gal. That allows me to remove the license so I can reclaim that. If the mailbox is too large for the license to be removed, if it's converted to a shared mailbox, we know that, we will leave the license. Otherwise, we'll reclaim that. I have this set to give the manager access automatically to their OneDrive. You can do out of office messages, litigation hold. There are a lot of different things that you can configure that will take care of not only the on-prem side, but the cloud side as well. So the last thing you want to have happen as an organization is for Clark here to be let go, and he is upset and leaves the building. He's still signed into email on his phone, and he does something that either he or the company or both are going to regret. It's just much better to have, from a security standpoint, everything done, and then you don't have to worry about it, right? You don't have to wait for AD replication. You don't have to wait for Microsoft Connect replication. Everything's done for you right away. And if we take a look at this user account, he's back. He is fully deprovisioned. All of his information has been cleared out. He's no longer a member of any groups. His passwords reset. Everything is done. So literally, he is really, off-boarded fully. Don't be afraid though if you accidentally chose the wrong person. Maybe they decided to come back. As long as the account still exists in AD and the cloud, we can reverse this process. So you do have a way to recover and undo this if you make a mistake or something changes. That is called undo suspend. And this can also be done immediately, and it can also be done on a schedule through the web. So what this will do is, as part of the suspend process, we stored the information that was changed on the user account as part of that process, both for the on-prem and the cloud. And then that gives us the ability to easily basically reverse that. So now this account has been re-provisioned because I messed up and I wasn't supposed to, deprovision Clark. And if I look at his account again here, everything has been restored for him, all of his groups, everything, both on-prem and the cloud, and that was done as part of the process. And literally for this person now, all I would need to do was a quick password reset, and he's just exactly where he was before. So it's very, very easy to get yourself out of trouble if you make a mistake, but it's a full process both directions. That's really the web. So the web, we really try to target this for one-off activities. Not all of our customers have a full HR database or system that they can leverage. So we like to give as much flexibility as possible for those folks that need to do something manually or semi-automatically, but give still a lot of control around that. The other side of the software is where you set up the delegation and those settings to drive that compliance and consistency, the policies around the attributes. And this is also where you set up the full automation for users, provisioning and deprovisioning. We have some great templates that will create basically generic runbooks that we use then to do the provisioning process. I'll click one of these. I'm not going to create it, but just so you see it, we support Microsoft SQL, text file or CSV, and also Oracle as sources of data to do provisioning of user accounts and deprovisioning of user accounts. This template will basically create a rule set based on what I have checked into a runbook, which is what we call it, and that is just a set of rules that run in order to do automatic processes. In this case, it's going to be provisioning a user account. We have the same thing available for deprovisioning. It's not quite as exciting because it's really just one rule that kicks off the process, but again, we do support SQL, text, and Oracle database for that as well. I do have this set up. And so this is the provisioning runbook that I have today. One nice thing about seeing the web prior to this is it will kind of explain the mapping between the fully automated process and the quote unquote manual process. This first file here is what is used to create my Active Directory users initially. If I take a look here, this is based on the CSV file. I have some generic data that I use for this. So here's my information that I get from HR. And all of this is pretty standard info, but I don't get everything from my HR feed. So there are bits of information that I need to get in other ways, and it's based on location, department, and those types of things. For this individual rule, all you need to do once you have your data is really just map the information you have from your CSV or from your database into our rules to determine the account, the way it looks based on your naming rules, what settings you want to have as part of the process, just like you would do through your normal wizard process. But you set all of this up, all of the information comes from either the file or the computer, or sorry, the database, and then it just runs on a schedule and does the creation. I'm actually going to show you guys. I'm going to go ahead and run this real quick. So while that's going, we'll look through the rest of this just kind of at a high level. After the user's created in AD, now I need to do some extra things to really fully populate the user data. So if you remember in my web example, I populated the address information based on the location. This rule does the exact same thing. So I have this text file. If here's my office list, here are my addresses. And now as users get created, if they are in a certain location, they'll get the corresponding address information. I don't get that from my HR data, so it's very easy for me to add this. Again, data consistency. I want everything in Active Directory to be as pristine as possible. So that's the way I help with that. I also have the ability through this, I can add into some default groups that everybody gets, or maybe based on location or some attribute. Then here's the account creation, the license, creating the remote mailbox, again, setting those attributes in Active Directory that lets Active Directory know that this is a cloud account and not a on-prem account. And then for full automation, the final step here is the relocation in AD. So moving these users to the appropriate OU based on whatever criteria you utilize to make that determination. In my case, it's based on location. So if you're in Columbus, you go here. If you're in Seattle, you go here, etc. Looks like the execution was successful, which is good. So now if I come into the web, I can check on these users. So let's look for Adam Arturo. So now if I look for Adam, here's that user account, and I can look at this user and see that based on my runbook, everything's been populated. He's in the accounting group because he's in the accounting location. I can look at his licensing. He should have an F3 license applied, or sorry, Stream license applied. I don't have a bunch of licenses in my tenant, so I kind of keep those close to the vest. But this is what I'm assigning for these folks by default. But everything was done for me automatically behind the scenes, and it's really set it and forget it. I put a schedule on this for however often I need this to process, maybe once a day, twice a day, once a week, whatever that happens to be. You set it up, test it, schedule it, and it just runs. It's very, very efficient and a very repeatable process. The less you have to deal with manually, the better. For the deprovisioning, it's, like I said a minute ago, not super exciting. You basically have either a text file or a database that you look at. It's one rule. These are my users that are going to be deprovisioned, and I actually have the same users that I run through deprovisioning, so I'll go ahead and kick that off too. Do you want them to also deprovision from the office side or not? That is a choice you get to make as part of this rule. But it literally goes through and does everything that you saw in the web for the deprovisioning process, but it's just done automatically. There's nothing for an individual to do manually. And then once this is done, the user will basically be deprovisioned. So it looks like it's done. So I should see Adam here. He's now been suspended. And if I take a look at his properties, we should see the same thing we saw basically from Clark earlier. So everything's being cleared out. So again, this person's been suspended and moved to my suspended OU. So he's been deprovisioned. The same thing with the provisioning. You set the runbook up, you put it on a schedule, and it just runs however often you need that to run to do your deprovisioning processes. If you do clean up accounts automatically on a regular basis, there's another rule that you can run. Let's say if you have that set up to do every 90 days, very easy to set up, and there's another rule that runs that looks for those dates that will then clean those out for you automatically. There's a whole runbook around that actually, and this enforce object deletion rule, and I'm actually going to run that right now. So now all of the objects, the users, sorry, that I have provisioned during this time, these 5, now they're going to be deprovisioned. So here's my list. And we do have full audit trail for both the automation rules and also the web. So you will be able to see as things occur, if there are any issues or any errors. Also for the automatic provisioning, you can send out emails automatically to like the manager of the users with the password so they get notification. It's very customizable, and it really depends on how you want to use the product. We have customers that do everything from an automated standpoint, and we have customers that only do parts and pieces. So it really is very flexible, and we'll set it up to meet your needs. And that's really the user provisioning process, both from the web, which is kind of semi-automated, and then also from the automation and configuration console, which is fully automated. If you choose to use our tool, we're here to help and can help you with all the configuration and getting things working appropriately, and more than happy to do that. One last thing I'm going to mention before I turn it over to Justin, that I would be remiss if I did not bring this up, because he's going to go through the next slide after the demo. And this is our Guardian tool. So Administrator does all of your administration. Guardian actually in real time monitors for changes in the environment and keeps a log of those changes, and then also gives you the ability to undo those changes if needed. So over the past little while, I've done all of these creation of user accounts, deletions of user accounts, and so I can literally go through here and see everything that happened with all of these accounts, both on-prem and cloud, over the time. And it also is going to not only show me what I did through the administrator product, but this actually talks to the native Active Directory and Azure Active Directory environment. So here's my Sam Smith account that I did through Active Directory users' computers. Here's my creation, and here it looks like it's synchronized to the cloud. So again, monitoring and for changes that made, alerting, reporting, and recovery. So that is the demo for today. I am going to bring back up the slide deck for Justin, and he will lead us out.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chad. So just to briefly give you an idea or big picture of who Cayosoft is, our automated provisioning and deprovisioning capabilities are just one of the many things we do, and I'd like to run through some of those arenas in which we operate, and we sum that up in 3 words: manage, monitor, and recover. So starting with management, from simple, secure automation of common admin tasks, just like user provisioning and deprovisioning that you saw today, in order to drive efficiency and accuracy. Or maybe you want to understand how many underused or unassigned licenses you have in order to save some cash this year. That's an option. And there's so much more that falls under the management category, but to speak a little bit about monitoring, which Chad touched on very briefly. This is where we offer real-time alerting for malicious or accidental changes, and then ending with recovery by rolling back mistakes or changes, or in the unfortunate event of an attack, instantly recovering active directories, which is really changing the game in the realm of recovery with that ability to instantly recover. We're basically your one-stop shop for managing, monitoring, and recovering your Microsoft directories, all without the hassle of using multiple disconnected tools. And while we didn't cover all of this offering today, we want to give you some information in order to check out these other areas and give you a way to ask questions in case you're walking away with thoughts or an interest in a solution you weren't really thinking you'd have. So we'll head over to the next slide and we'll make this quick. Um, if you're looking at this last slide, you'll see some pages you can use to reach out depending on what you'd like to do, like ask a sales question. You can start your free trial. You can request a personalized demo. Actually, if you're ready to move forward with a personalized demo that's unique to you, you can scan that little QR code near the left side of the screen, and that will take you directly to the demo request form. Fill that out, and we'll reach back out as soon as possible, that's a very timely process. So I'll give you all a moment to jot down these links. While you're doing that, I just want to mention that we do a lot of these types of events throughout the year. Some of these are educational, and then some are more product specific, where we show you just how useful and ahead of the game the Cayosoft product series actually is. So be on the lookout for those invitations. We will send those to you, or you can check out our upcoming events page on the site. Now, we did try to cover a lot today, and we really strive to keep these short for you. So just a reminder that if we didn't get around to answering your question, we're going to be following up with you on those. So be on the lookout for those responses. So with that, thank you, Chad. We really appreciate you. And thank you all again for joining us. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.